It's good to have you join me on the news. We begin with Africa-Russia summit begins amidst war. Austin says U.S. not seeking permanent base in PNG. North Korea's leader meets Russia's defense chief. In India, gig workers against firms over new task, and Typhoon Doksuri kills 6 in Philippines. The Russian president on Thursday will roll out the red carpet for African leaders as he pursues to shore up Moscow's position in a continent that's becoming progressively significant to his country's geopolitical ambitions. Alongside the war in Ukraine, food security will be high on the agenda of the second African-Russia summit in St. Petersburg, especially after Russia's decision last week to withdraw from an international grain deal left several in Africa unnerved. According to the United Nations, the agreement was brokered by the United Nations and Turkey last year to left the safe passage of agricultural goods through Ukraine's ports in the Black Sea despite the war with Russia. While the vast majority of the nearly 33 million tons exported since then did not reach the world's poorest countries, the deal helped reverse spiraling food prices by over 20%. Russia justified its decision by saying the conditions for the extension of the Black Sea Grain Initiative had been ignored. In the days that followed, it unleashed a series of strikes on port infrastructure and grain depots in the south of Ukraine. Kenya's Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Korir Sioe, called Putin's decision a stab on the back, but African leaders have by and large refrained from commenting. In an editorial published on Monday, Putin blamed the West for failing to deliver grain to the world's poorest and assured African nations that Russia can replace Ukrainian grain free of charge as the country is expecting a record harvest this year. Moscow has always dreamed of an alternative financial and commercial system that is disconnected from the West, something that is now even more urgent given sanctions on Russia, said Alex Vines, lead of the African program at Chatham House, referring to the sweeping measures imposed by Western countries following Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year. And Africans becomes important in this as Russia looks for new partnerships, Vines added. Russian officials have said that Putin at the summit will address the issue of food and fertilizers, as well as hold bilateral discussions with African leaders. But at this event, only 17 African heads of state or government will be present compared to 43 that attended the 2019 summit, leading Russia to blame interference from the West. A number of cultural, humanitarian and technological deals are expected to be signed at the summit, with participants also due to adopt a resolution. The main attention will be paid to the prospects for the further development of relations between Africa and Russia, with an emphasis on our assistance to the national sovereign development of Africans, ensuring fair access to food, fertilizers, modern technologies and energy resources, Kremlin Foreign Policy Advisor Yuri Lushenkov said this week. Now, Washington was not seeking a permanent base in Papua New Guinea, PNG, the United States Defense Secretary has said as he announced the deployment of a U.S. Coast Guard ship to the Pacific nation. Lloyd Austin made a comment on Thursday during a trip to Port Moresby, the PNG's capital. Austin's visit makes him the first Pentagon boss to visit the country and comes as the U.S. seeks to boost its military footprint in the region amidst fierce competition with China. In May, PNG and the U.S. signed a defense cooperation agreement that sets a framework for Washington to refurbish the country's ports and airports for military and civilian use. The text of the agreement shows that it allows the staging of U.S. forces and equipment in PNG and covers the Lumbrum naval base, which is being developed by Australia and the United States. I just want to be clear, we are not seeking a permanent base in PNG, Austin said, according to reports in Port Moresby, following a meeting with Prime Minister James Marape. He said the two nations were deepening an existing defense relationship and will modernize PNG's defense force and boost interoperability. Our goal is to make sure we strengthen PNG's ability to defend itself and protect its interests, he added. Under the effort to boost ties, as a U.S. Coast Guard quarter will visit PNG in August, Austin said. The deployment, he added, will help the country stop the plundering of its thinly protected marine resources, stopping activities like illegal fishing and trafficking. The defense agreement comes as the U.S. and its allies are seeking to deter Pacific Island nations from forming security ties with China, a rising concern amidst tension over Taiwan and after Beijing signed a security pact with the Solomon Islands. Marape on Thursday said the defense cooperation with the U.S. will build up PNG's capability and was not for a war joint preparation. PNG's parliament is yet to ratify the deal, which has been questioned by some opposition party politicians concerned about upsetting major trading partner China. Marape said his government prioritized diplomacy. In the Pacific, we are not about war, we are about peace, tolerance, and of course promoting our values of democracy, Christianity, and living well with each other. The United States has always been showing that character also in their global footprint, he said. Now on politics, Kim Jong-un, North Korea leader, has met with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu in his first known meeting with a foreign dignitary since the COVID-19 pandemic. Kim and Shoigu discussed matters of mutual concern related to defense and regional security and viewed an exhibition of weapons including ballistic missiles, reports said on Thursday. The meeting between the two men was an important occasion in further developing the strategic and traditional DPRK-Russia relations as required by the new country, report said, referring to the acronym of North Korea's official name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Kim led Shoigu on a tour of a display of new weapons and military equipment with pictures of the exhibition showing banned ballistic missiles, multi-axe transporter launchers, and what appeared to be a new drone. Shoigu also gave Kim a letter from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Kim thanked Putin for sending a delegation led by Shoigu, who also held talks with North Korean Defense Minister Kang Sun-nam. His trip to Pyongyang, the first known visit by a foreign dignitary in 3 years, comes as North Korea is marking the 70th anniversary of the armistice that ended hostilities in the 1950-53 Korean War. On business and economy, gig workers have welcomed a new law in India's largest state, Rajasthan, to impose a tax on revenue earned by digital platforms that operate in the state, including global giants Uber and Amazon, even as industry groups have warned it will eventually hurt customers and derail business in the state. Late at night on Monday, Rajasthan passed a law imposing up to 2% tax on revenue earned by digital platforms that operate in the state. The tax will go towards the welfare and social security of an estimated 2 million platform-based gig workers in the state, the first in the country, and coming at a time when national elections are less than a year away. The move, orchestrated by the Indian National Congress Party, which is in power in the state, has been welcomed by associations representing gig workers who have over the past few years frequently organized to demand improved wages and social security benefits. The new rules are expected to kick in within the next 2 or 3 months. Sheikh Saluddin, founder and state president of the Telangana Gig and Platform Workers Union (TGPWU) and National General Secretary of the Indian Federation of App-Based Transport Workers (IFAT), said gig workers celebrate the move and spearheaded the consultations with the government of Rajasthan on the bill's provisions. We here at IFAT celebrate this day along with all our brothers and sisters who worked and contributed to this complex and difficult journey where a multi-billion-dollar corporation has refused to recognize us, speak to us, and ignored our presence in the labor market, Saluddin said in a statement. On weather and climate, on Thursday, Typhoon Doksuri lashed southern Taiwan after battering the Philippines. Weather storms, ferocious winds and rain stoked floods and landslides that killed at least 6 people. The storm, categorized at the second strongest typhoon level by Taiwan's Weather Bureau, was heading towards the southern Taiwan Strait with maximum winds of 191 kilometers, 180 miles per hour on Thursday morning. On Wednesday, Doksuri has lost some of its strength since it lashed the northern Philippine coastline, bursting banks of rivers, flooding low-lying villages and unleashing dozens of landslides. In the Bugeas town in Bongkwe province, a landslide buried a house, killing a mother, her child, and 2 other children. In the nearby resort city of Bangwe, a 17-year-old teen was killed when soil loosened by heavy rains buried his house, officials said. In Isabela province, also in the north, a woman selling bread on a bicycle cart died when she was hit in the head by a falling coconut tree, a police report added. In Taiwan on Thursday, the Weather Bureau issued wind and rain warnings for the southern part of the island, including the major port city of Kaohsiung, where businesses and schools were closed and landslide warnings issued. All domestic flights were suspended on the island, while a handful of international flights were cancelled. Railway services between southern and eastern Taiwan were short. More than 4,000 people were evacuated as a precaution, mostly in the mountainous southern and eastern Taiwan, where nearly 0.7 meters of rainfall was recorded in some areas and up to 1 meter of rain was forecast. The storm had cut power from more than 15,700 households across Taiwan, but the majority of them had since been restored. The storm is expected to make landfall in southern China on Friday morning. China's National Meteorological Center on Wednesday upgraded its typhoon warning alerts from orange to red, the highest advisory among the 4-tier coded warning system. Authorities also urge people to shop on food, necessities and candles as a precautionary measure. Doksuri will be the second typhoon to make landfall in China in less than 2 weeks after Tallinn slammed into Guangdong province on the evening of July 17th. In Africa, soldiers are said to have ousted Niger's leader. Announced late Wednesday, mutinous soldiers claim to have overthrown Niger's democratically elected president, saying they have put an end to the government over the African country's deteriorating security. The soldiers said all institutions had been suspended and security forces were managing the situation. The mutinous urged external partners not to interfere. The announcement came after a day of uncertainty as members of Niger's presidential guard surrounded the presidential palace and detained President Mohamed Bazoum. There was no immediate indication of whether the mutiny was supported by other parts of the military. It was unclear where the president was at the time of the announcement or if he had resigned. This is as a result of the continuing degradation of the security situation, the bad economic and social governance, Air Force Colonel Major Amadou Abraham said on social media. Seated at a table in front of 9 other officers, he said aerial and land borders were closed and a curfew was imposed until the situation is being stabilized. The group, which is calling itself National Council for the Safeguarding of the Country, said it remained committed to its engagements with the international and national community. Earlier on Wednesday, a tweet from the account of Niger's presidency reported that members of the elite guard unit engaged in an anti-republican demonstration and unsuccessfully tried to obtain support from other security forces. It said Bazoum and his family were doing well, but the Niger's army and National Guard are ready to attack if those involved in the action did not back down. Commissions of the African Union and the Economic Community of West African States described the event as an effort to unseat Bazoum, who was elected president 2 years ago in the nation's first peaceful democratic transfer of power since its independence from France in 1960. Before the announcement, hundreds of people took to the streets of the capital Niamey and chanted "No coup d'etat" while marching in support of the president. Multiple rounds of gunfire that appeared to come from the presidential palace dispersed the demonstrators and sent people scrambling for cover. The international community strongly condemned the attempted seizure of power. Bus crash in Senegal kills 24. In northern Senegal, 24 people, including 4 children, have died in a bus crash. The bus had been coming from a town in the north of the country on 26 July and was reportedly overcrowded with 76 people on board, 16 more than the permitted number. Senegalese Interior Minister Anthony Felix Abdoulaye Diome said overcrowding was a serious problem. I'd like to pause for a moment to deplore the fact that there are still too many passengers on public transport vehicles. On the registration document of the vehicle involved in the accident, it is stated that the maximum number of passengers is 60. However, when the victims were counted, it was discovered that there were in fact 76 people on board. The injured passengers were evacuated to hospitals in the town of Lungwa in the city of St. Louis. In January 19th, people were killed and 24 injured in a collision in the same area near Lungwa. The previous week, around 40 people died when a bus crashed in the center of Senegal. That tragedy on January 8th prompted a wave of criticism against authorities over the frequency of accidents on Senegal's roads and the lack of action taken to prevent them. The government responded by announcing a long list of measures, including a ban on overnight bus journeys, but transport professionals said many of the measures were unrealistic. Nevertheless, Dion believes action must be taken to save lives. Since the Inter-Ministerial Council in January 2023, there has been a drastic reduction in accidents as reported by the administrative authorities, he explained. But with Wednesday's meeting, we have reason to believe that the work is certainly being done, but it will have to continue with much greater firmness on certain measures. Across many African countries, dilapidated vehicles, reckless driving and corrupt law enforcement officials all contribute to tragedies on the road. We'll take more stories after this time out. Stay with us. You're welcome back on Zoom on Nigeria. We have NLC threatened strike, issues 7-day ultimatum. Yesterday, Nigeria's organized labor gave a fresh 7-day ultimatum to the federal government to order the instant reversal of the recent increase in fuel price or anticipate nationwide protests from workers in the country. This is just as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made an earnest appeal to the organized labor in the country to suspend their industrial actions and give his administration more time to attend to their demands. The Labour Centre also directed all affiliates, including the state councils, to start immediate mobilization for nationwide protests in a step to oblige the federal government to reverse all anti-people policies. The protest is anticipated to begin on August 2nd, 2023, should the federal government fail to meet the organized labor demands. The decision was reached at the end of the Central Working Committee CWC meeting of the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC in Abuja. In a communique made available after the meeting, the Labour Centre noted that it was clear that the federal government was not interested in discussions, having exhausted half of the agreed 8-week time frame for palliative measures, as it is yet to activate the Presidential Steering Committee to that effect. In the communique signed by NLC National President Comrade Joe Ajero and General Secretary Emmanuel Ogboja, the Labour Centre stressed that the government's conduct suggested that it does not intend to commit itself to the MOU it signed with NLC and TUC. Ajero also called on all civil society organizations and Nigerians to begin mobilization and take action on their own to save Nigeria. Although the government has set up a committee to liaise with the organized labor, the outcome did not turn out as the federal government went ahead with announcement of the now aborted 8,000 naira palliative without giving room for the committee to deliberate on it. Now, Tinubu condemns attempted coup in Niger. President Bola Tinubu has pronounced unacceptable the attempted coup in Niger Republic on Monday morning by yet-to-be-identified military men. Yesterday, Presidential Guards helped President Mohamed Bazoum inside his palace in the capital Niamey, but the presidency said the Guards had begun an anti-Republican movement in vain and that Bazoum was well. The Benin presidency, in a statement, said the National Army was prepared to take them if they did not come to their senses. The statement followed reports that Presidential Guards had cut access to the presidential palace and blocked Bazoum inside, raising concern West Africa's sixth coup since 2020 could be underway. Bazoum's election was the first democratic transition of power in a state that has witnessed 4 military coups since independence from France in 1960. Tinubu, reacting, said in the statement that the leadership of ECOWAS will not tolerate any situation that incapacitates the democratically elected government. Information filtering in from the Republic of Niger indicates some unpleasant developments around the country's highest political leadership. Leadership will not accept ECOWAS region, and all lovers of democracy around the world will not tolerate any situation that incapacitates the democratically elected government of the country. The ECOWAS leadership will not accept any action that impedes the smooth functioning of legitimate authority in Niger or any part of West Africa. I wish to say that we are closely monitoring the situation and developments in Niger, and we will do everything within our powers to ensure democracy is firmly planted, nurtured, well-rooted, and thrives in our region. Tinubu, chairperson of ECOWAS, said he was in close consultation with other leaders in the region, adding, "We shall protect our hard-earned democracy in line with the universally acceptable principle of constitutionalism." The president said Nigeria stands firmly with the elected government in Niger Republic. Meanwhile, ECOWAS has dispatched President of Benin Republic, Patrice Talon, to Niger to intervene and unravel what led to the attempted coup. Tinubu, chairman of the authority of the ECOWAS heads of state and government, met with Talon yesterday, saying the meeting had to do with the political unrest in Niger, adding that the Benin president was heading to the troubled nation. And finally, on the news on economy, federal government needs more trillion naira loan for 2023 budget, DMO says. Debt Management Office DMO said yesterday the federal government requires new borrowing in excess of 9 trillion naira to keep up with the financing of the 11 trillion naira deficit of the 2023 Appropriation Act budget of about 21 trillion naira. In addition, the agency said that at a debt stock to GDP ratio of below 25% threshold, Nigeria ranks among the lowest debt stock nations globally. The agency said revenue was the challenge facing the country. The country's debt service to revenue ratio peaked at 100% in 2022, a relatively high position that shrinks fiscal space available to the government for fresh borrowings. Patience Oniha, Director General DMO, made this known yesterday in her goodwill message delivered at a one-day technical roundtable on economic blueprints for President Bola Tinubu's administration organized by ActionAid Nigeria. She explained that debt stock continued to grow primarily as a result of consecutive budget deficits, a development it said unavoidably resulted in an increase in debt service obligations. Presently, DMO noted that debt service consumes a major portion of the country's revenues, not essentially because its debt stock is high, but as revenue of low and worse, which often underperforms targets in the budgets. Nigeria presently carries a debt weight of 49.85 trillion naira for the period of ending March 31st, 2023, from 46.25 trillion naira as of December 21st, 2022, according to DMO. The sum represents external and domestic debts of the federal government, the 36 states, and the Federal Capital Territory. This excludes the amount the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, advanced to federal governments via ways and means in excess of 20 trillion naira. Oniha lauded Tinubu's administration for some bold but painful reforms he took, which she described as best and right choice policy in the collective interest of Nigerians. She said the president laid bare his economic agenda and manifesto during his campaign. We have also witnessed implementation of some aspects of the plan, such as the removal of subsidy of premium motor spirit PMS and the unification of the Naira exchange rates. She said the situation of the economy needed critical and urgent attention to avoid deterioration in major economic and social indices. She added that some of the measures that have been taken so far were not only needed but essential to propel Nigeria towards sustainable development. She said President Tinubu had started to reverse a third in negative economic policies, a development that supports much higher revenue. It is now imperative that we confront revenues and take decisive actions to further strengthen our revenue streams from all sources. We expect to see improvements in revenues from the work of the Committee on Revenues set up by President Tinubu, Oniha concluded. A recap of major stories says Africa-Russia summit begins amidst war. Austin says U.S. not seeking permanent base in PNG. North Korea's leader meets Russian defense chief. India says gig workers against firms over new task, and Typhoon Doksuri kills 6 in Philippines. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Tureki from all the crew members. Have a nice day.